Hi, I'm Ravenous, and I haven't seen you guys in a while. This year has been crazy for a lot of different reasons, but the main point of this video is that I feel like before I produce any additional content on my channel, um, I feel like I need to be very bold and open and honest about the way I feel with the political climate and everything that's happening today. I feel like everything that's happening is very polarizing, and I happen to be one of those people that doesn't understand why. Um, I don't understand how human rights can be a political issue. I don't understand how corrupt police can be a political issue. I don't understand how an 8 minute and 46-second video of a man being essentially murdered in front of our eyes is a political issue. I myself was happily and luckily raised by a man named Lamont, and he was a very tall, very handsome black man, and he was the first one that taught me that black wasn't a bad word. He was black, and he was proud to be that way. Through our life together, we came across countless number of racial injustices that to this day still occasionally give me legitimate nightmares. That man would wait days after I moved out of the house to go to the bank just so I would take him, because one time when I was 17 years old, a police officer held him at gunpoint just because he was a nurse and he got off of a 12-hour shift, and it just happened to be like 6 in the morning. And he went to the bank to put his check into the ATM and pretty much got a gun to the back. And he came home shaking and angry, and I didn't understand why we couldn't do anything about it. And he essentially just told me that that was the way that it was. And I understood that, but I didn't get it until then. This year, some insane atrocities have happened to people of color and to people of the black community. And once again, I don't understand how it's become a political issue. Breonna Taylor was 26, and on March 13th, she was asleep in her home and she was murdered because police are just too hot on the handle. It's like reach for my gun, ask questions later, and she paid the ultimate price while literally doing nothing. The people in her case, the officers involved, have essentially not been punished. As of today, her family was recently awarded a $12 million lawsuit on behalf of the city of Louisville, and the lawsuit essentially said that they claimed no responsibility in the actions, the city. And while I'm happy the family got money, it makes me sad for the months and months that her case went unnoticed simply because it was a police matter. Breonna Taylor was left for 5 minutes bleeding out on the floor without any medical attention or any help because they just didn't care. Those officers, Mattingly and Cosgrove, have been put on administrative reassignment, meaning they are still on the job. And one officer was wounded. That was Mattingly, and he's doing okay now. The one officer, I want to make sure I get his name right, Hankinson, he fired 10 rounds into their apartment. He was notified that he was fired on June 23rd, not until June 23rd, and she was murdered on March 13th. And only because, essentially, the case was brought to light. He had 5 sexual misconducts against him. It just baffles me. One of the good things that, however, that came from the lawsuit that Breonna Taylor's family recently won was that part of it included police reform, and I hope that it makes some kind of difference. Now, like I was saying, the only reason that her case came to light is because, unfortunately, on May 25th, George Floyd was essentially murdered in front of our eyes. An officer knelt on his neck while he screamed, "I can't breathe," and 3 other officers watched. People tried to intervene, they tried to help in this situation, and they were threatened with weapons and prosecution and arrest. Now, the officer who actually knelt on his neck, Derek Chauvin, is being held on a $1 million bail and has been charged with second-degree murder and manslaughter. The other 3 officers, Quang, Tao, and Lane, have been charged with aiding and abetting, so I don't know what kind of sentencing they will get. But the race war, essentially, that has been ignited because of it, it baffles me that we are still fighting against racism in a world where the Holocaust happened, in a world where our history books tell us that genocide occurs in all forms across the whole world throughout time, and for some reason we never seem to learn from it. And I don't understand that. We're all humans. It doesn't matter the color of your skin. So from my heart to your ears, essentially, if your child left in their favorite sweatshirt just to go to the corner store to grab some candy and never came home. Now what if you heard almost every single week about someone just like you who gets profiled or beaten or worse, murdered? Imagine your child. That happens to your child because he's playing with his friends with a Nerf gun. And now imagine your child can't even leave the house to go visit their friends, to go to school, anything, while driving a car without you fearing for their safety. It doesn't matter if they're the best driver in the world, because unfortunately for them, they could come across the wrong police officer that day, and that could be it. I don't, and I can't, and I could never imagine that fear or that anxiety. And that is white privilege. And if this makes you uncomfortable, good. That's kind of the point. That feeling is the feeling that people of color experience every single day over the most basic situations that we are afforded to. People of color are forced to be more attentive in their actions. They're forced to be more conscious of the way they dress, even what neighborhoods that they drive through. Do you know in this day and age that we still have sundown towns? And if you've never heard of that statement before, I encourage you to look it up. It's literally a place where people of color are almost guaranteed to be injured or beaten or worse if they stay there after dark, simply because the town is full of backwards racists that in this 2020 still exists. The president, whose name is now forever tied to racism, classism, and sexism, is also a catalyst for this return to the good old days. Were they the good old days, or was it a time where people openly expressed their racism as fact and used skin color to determine someone's worth? This return that people speak of is nothing more than an attempt to keep their group superior, and it is disgusting. Another group of people once claimed superiority while rising from patriotism to nationalism, and that group was the Nazi Party. When we all look back at this, when we look at this moment in time, will your ancestors proudly explain that your family was on the right side of history? Or will your ancestors mourn the loss of so many and the tragic loss of our humanity as we look back honestly at a time where a pandemic could have brought us together, but instead we argued over skin color and somebody's worth and their basic right to equality? We are all human. If race is your first criteria for judgment, then you are a bad person. It's as simple as that. I would like to give a special thanks to scholar Renée Ater for graciously putting together all of the names that you see scrolling by. These are all people of color who have been murdered or killed by police brutality. These dates stem back generations. You can find links to her research as well as her digital monument to those lives lost at the links below. I'll also be including a link above that's clickable. There are also links below to places to donate to various causes in support of the Black Lives Matter movement, including bail funds for those unjustly arrested during the protests. There are also several petitions to sign in favor of moving forward punishments for officers involved in all of these cases of police brutality. Now, I've done a lot of research in the last couple weeks before I put this video together because I wanted to make sure that the facts were right, because I, if anybody, am somebody who believes in the numbers. And young black men are being killed at a substantially alarming rate compared to any other class. And the fact that we are still trying to hold them under our thumb, and we wonder why they explode with rage and anger, because if my child didn't come home one day, or my brother or my husband or my friend or my wife or whoever, simply because of the color of their skin and they met the wrong person with a superiority complex, I would tear the world asunder. And I'm one person, and they are an entire race of people that has been dealing with this struggle and this feeling for generations, literally over 100 years of this. If you can't understand that level of anger, it's because you're privileged, and you need to recognize that. I think moving forward, it's really important in today's climate that we be very vocal and honest about our opinions. And I don't think that humanity and the judgment we place on each other, or the fact that we keep equality from each other, is something that's an opinion. We are all equal. We are all human, and that is fact. I won't argue that. So thank you for watching. Thank you, Renee, for putting together this information. If you would like or are confused about the numbers and how to interpret them, the Washington Post has put together a lovely article that I'm also linking down below that will explain to you the racial injustice in police brutality so that you can see it in graphs. Plain. Unarguable.